The said COA audit report disclosed that 5 top executives of the Aquino administration failed to liquidate their cash advances, namely former Secretary Mar Rojas of the DILG, 1.1 billion pesos. Former Secretary Voltar Gasmin of the DND, 685.6 million pesos. Former Secretary Laila de Lima of the DOJ, 617.4 million pesos. Former Secretary Dinky Soliman of the DSWD, 452.5 million pesos. And former Secretary Proceso Alcala of the DA, 354.5 million pesos. Selective attention is the process of focusing on a particular object in the environment for a certain period of time. It allows us to skip other details that we do not want and concentrate on those that excite us. In life, we selectively focus on things that matter for a time, letting off those that should be shelved for the time being. Mr. Speaker, whatever happened to the findings in the 228-page 2013 audit report of the Commission on Audit submitted to Congress in the same year? The 10.1 billion peso unliquidated cash advances were reported and widely circulated by several newspapers in November 2014. The said COA audit report disclosed that 5 top executives of the Aquino administration failed to liquidate their cash advances, namely former Secretary Mar Rojas of the DILG, 1.1 billion pesos. Former Secretary Voltar Gasmin of the DND, 685.6 million pesos. Former Secretary Laila de Lima of the DOJ, 617.4 million pesos. Former Secretary Dinky Soliman of the DSWD, 452.5 million pesos. And former Secretary Proceso Alcala of the DA, 354.5 million pesos. This was so alarming that one of our colleagues, who was also then an incumbent member of the 16th Congress, the Honorable Roman Romulo, filed House Bill 1287. Said bill sought to make infraction prima facie proof of embezzlement. In the said news report, Congressman Romulo was even quoted to have said, and I quote, "Under the revised penal code, if a public officer had been advanced cash and failed to account for the money, it is presumed that the money had been pocketed and put to personal use. The legal presumption is as clear as day." The proposed bill further advocated that the failure to settle the cash advance will be sufficient evidence that the receiving party pocketed the money, which could be the basis for the Ombudsman to initiate a criminal action for malversation of public funds. There was also a finding in 2013 COA Annual Audit Report, Mr. Speaker, that the PhilHealth Board, which then included now Senator Risa Ontiveros, granted 1.76 billion peso illegal bonuses to the officers and employees of said agency, despite the issuance of previous notices of disallowance and despite COA's repeated decisions sustaining those actions. The COA also affirmed that the board resolution granting said bonuses were not submitted to the Office of the President through the DBM for approval, as required under Section 6 of Presidential Decree number 1597. In 2014, I recall that based on the 2014 COA Annual Audit Report, COA revealed that it was revealed to the media that the DILG has yet to account for more than 7 billion pesos worth of funds transferred for various projects implemented under the term of then Secretary Mar Rojas. Also, we need to find out what happened to the initial findings of COA that 625 million funds were released to senior citizens with double entries. It was also mentioned in the 2013 or 2015 COA audit report that another cash advance related to APEC meeting amounting to 1 billion pesos remain unliquidated to this day by the DILG. And so, what happened to these findings in 2013, 2014, and 2015, Mr. Speaker? Why were these anomalies not subjected to Senate investigations and teleserye? And why did not the mainstream media relentlessly report this, like what they do so flamboyantly today? And why this selective attention, if not selective memory? The answer is very obvious, Madam Speaker. The COA findings I mentioned earlier were still far away from the next election at the time they were reported for the people to notice. Enterprising politicians know only too well that they will not earn any point in doing so. Unlike today, Madam Speaker, the elections are but 7 days or 7 months away, and the prospective candidates find no better time to politicize them. Make louder noise about them and be heard. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, where a well-coordinated, cohesive, and a collective will, with the full support of a united citizenry, is the only chance for us to survive and defeat these national scourge with the grace of God. Kaya lang po, Madam Speaker, may mga kandidato pa rin po na walang pinipiling panahon, may panalo lang ang kanilang sarili. Bigyan po natin ito ng isang akmang paghahalimbawa. Nasa kasagsagan at kasalukuyang nasusunog ang malaking bahagi ng isang komunidad. Kasabay ng sunog ay ang balita na overpriced pala ang pagkakabili ng mga truck na pamatay sunog. Ipinatawag ni Candidate A ang pinuno ng mga bumbero upang ituloy ang investigasyon, kumalat man ang apoy at matupok ang maraming mga kabahayan. Bakit po? Dahil ito ay tiyak na makasisira sa reputasyon ni Candidate B na kaibigan ng supplier ng fire trucks na kalaban niya sa eleksyon at pambato ng administrasyon. The 2020 Annual Audit Report is the case in point. Released sometime in June this year, it covered several departments: DILG, DSWD, DepEd, DA, DOTR, DOH, and a score of others more. Madam Speaker. But why was the media blitz focused only on the DOH? First, because the COA arbitrarily trumpeted that the 67.3 billion pesos spent by the DOH in battling the pandemic was allegedly attended by deficiencies. Secondly, because the DOH is in the eye of the storm, being the principal agency that leads the battle against the pandemic in several fronts. The staggering amount alone alarmed the people, but the sweeping COA conclusions like the problem exposed DOH's inability to safeguard, manage, and utilize health funds and resources economically and effectively, or the conclusion that the failure to spend its budget deprived the poor citizens of basic health services and could have saved many lives. These conclusions, Madam Speaker, scandalized the entire nation. It was too late in the day when COA explained that there was no money lost to corruption because it came after the damage had been done. Before DOH could even present the status report within the time frame allotted by COA itself, nawarak na ito. And the political wannabes hastily seized the opportunity to join the election bandwagon to grandstand and to look so righteous. There must be governing principles to make COA a tenable instrument of public administration and governance. In its own website, COA maintains that it is constitutionally mandated to ensure accountability for public resources, promote transparency, and help improve government operations in partnership with stakeholders for the benefit of the Filipino people. But how can COA fulfill this mandate when all it does is to present annual audits of agencies by year-end or after the completion of given projects and programs? And these annual reports have become too boring and commonplace because of COA's traditional post-audit system that will perhaps stay for 1,000 years more unless our state auditors wake up and learn to innovate. It is generally held, Madam Speaker, that the government is too big to fail, precisely because it is not its nature to go broke. As either the role of a guardian or a spender, government is reposed a duty inherently complicated under the present circumstances, the pandemic. It is easily caught in a fiscal panic, essentially because of the rigid fiscal environment of limited resources that are beyond more and more challenged by a problem of supply chain beyond our control. The politicizing of COA reports betrayed the principles of the so-called politics-administration dichotomy. At the proper time, Madam Speaker, COA may have to revisit its rules, procedures, methodologies, and even techniques in the conduct of its constitutional duty. It might even have to change its intellectual handle on how it does public management in the face of a pandemic that brought about unprecedented consequences. It is only unfortunate that while we generally lay credence to the audits on one hand, it seems that COA has easily lent itself to pointing finger on the other hand. The next question will be, who will audit the state auditors to prevent this politics-administration dichotomy from being compromised or even violated? The government response to the pandemic has preoccupied its entire machinery. The interagency task force was created with no less than the President on top of the situation with calibrated legislative support. But the task becomes so complicated, overwhelming and onerous when the laws and regulations are so precise that they deny bureaucracies enough latitude in carrying out the law, according to an expert in public policy. COA's findings can be used to strengthen internal controls and operational efficiency and good governance, but it must innovate in order to prevent, not only to report, irregular, extravagant, and unconscionable expenditures. Given the express mandate in Article 9D, Section 2, Paragraphs 1 and 2 of the Philippine Constitution. State auditors must resist the tug of watchdogs and must recognize the need for improvement rather than posturing as know-it-all experts. Madam Speaker, according to H. George Frederickson, eminent fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration in the United States, the ongoing dynamics within the range of political and administrative values should not be one of conflict, compromise, and change, but rather one of harmony, cooperation, and continuity. Sometimes, departments are best enabled when certain procedural constraints that agencies are supposed to rigidly observe are liberalized when conditions so warranted. After all, COA's rules and procedures are not written in stones.